All right, we'll call the Rules Committee meeting to order. We are going to attempt to do a calendar for today and for tomorrow. And for informational purposes, the bills are starting to come out of committee, but they're coming out kind of slow. And actually we had 2 bills that came out of subcommittee yesterday that got reported out, but we told them that was a little premature. And we're going to have some additional bills. The committees are meeting, and so what I would like to do tomorrow, if we have enough bills to play with, is to set a calendar for Friday and to set a calendar for Tuesday, so we will not have to have a rules meeting on Friday. So, and if that doesn't work, then what we may do is the same thing that we're doing today, and on Tuesday morning we may set a calendar for Tuesday and a calendar for Wednesday. But I do not intend to have a Rules Committee meeting on Friday of this week, so y'all can plan your schedule accordingly. All right, let's see. Chairman Belton.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for members of the committee. I bring before you, have 3 bills. House Bill 25.
We only want to hear one.
Okay.
HB 25.
Yes, sir. House Bill 25. On your desk, I put a piece of paper that has different colors on it, red, green, yellow. This is a document from the Pentagon asking for these particular things. So the one we're talking about today is the very last bullet in red, increased protection under supplemental Service Members Civil Relief Act provisions. So there is a federal Service Relief Act that they established in 2003, which handles court proceedings, default judgments, evictions, foreclosures, and loss of insurance coverages. The Pentagon is asking for us to add a couple things. 18 states have done this, including our military rivals. 3 states have this under legislation today. What it does is just 3 really simple things. It extends the federal protections to Reserve and National Guard members when they're on federal orders for 90 days to a place where they cannot receive this same service. It includes a health spa provision and includes television, video, auto programming, and internet. So in other words, if I had a Verizon account and I was moving to Montana for 90 days on orders, it would not apply to this because they offer Verizon in Montana. But if I was sent to Outer Mongolia, then they do not service Verizon at Outer Mongolia. So in that case, you'd be able to terminate your contract if you're going to be there more than 90 days. I yield for questions.
Are there questions? No questions. Thank you,
I
sir.
ask for your favorable opinion.
Representative Morris.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you this morning House Resolution 51. This deals with the Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee border boundary line, creating a commission to study this. This was presented last year. It passed overwhelmingly in the House. We had a companion bill in the Senate, and what it does is it allows Georgia to continue to work on an issue that was created 201 years ago. For the last 193 years, we've been working to fix this. We're going to continue to work on this issue, hopefully, because it is important to our state to come to an agreement on what our northern boundary is. And I ask for your favorable consideration on this House resolution.
Whip Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is certainly an important resolution. We've seen it, something in this vein, several years. I remember when my former office mate, Representative Geisinger, was working on an issue like this, and it's certainly important that we protect our state's natural resources, and so I appreciate you doing this. But my question is are you volunteering to go up and read this resolution so that the people in Tennessee and North Carolina can actually understand it and know what's in it?
Thank you, Mr. Whip. Yes, I am prepared to read that. I'm also prepared that should bottles of water be delivered to our Capitol again, I'm prepared to bring my F-150 Ford pickup truck out front and deliver that water to the South Forsyth High School marching band this summer.
There you go.
Any other questions? There are none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Senator Heath, have you got a protege that's going to speak to your bill? Representative Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I submit for your consideration Senate Bill 25. Senate Bill 25 is essentially identical to House Bill 75, a bill that I was carrying this session, which attempts to and will correct a flaw in the current school bus stop law. House Bill 978 last year created a problem as it relates to school bus safety for children that are entering and exiting school buses. It removed the requirement for vehicles traveling in the opposite direction of a school bus to stop for that school bus in the presence of a turn lane. Ideally, public safety officials, school districts, school safety officials across the state have spoken out on this and believe that the law in the current state, and as has been in effect only since July of last year, creates an unsafe environment for our school children. Senate Bill 25 will restore the law to its previous condition prior to last year and create a situation in which the only situation in which it is lawful to pass a stopped school bus is when you are traveling in the opposite direction on separate roadways divided by a median, defined as either a grass median, an unpaved surface, or a physical barrier. I ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 25.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very brief question. I had a former Rules chairman and a grumpy guy that used to be my seatmate. Is there any relationship? I wanted to send him a message.
You did, right. I'm sure he'd be happy to speak to you. I think he's standing outside somewhere.
I will not look back.
Representative Lynn Smith.
Good morning, and thank you for your presentation. It was great. However, I think you might be slightly confused as a new presenter, and this is your first bill, is it not?
It is.
Normally, we take up House bills at this time of the year,
understand.
and I'm just curious if you work for the Senate or the House.
Right, I understand that. I can assure you that my devotion and affiliation and devotion lies squarely in the House. I understand that this may be a slight deviation from protocol, which concerned me as well. I did plenty of research and of course even deferred to the wisdom of those that know a lot more than I do. We're doing this for the betterment of the safety of school children of Georgia. And I'm happy to defer under those circumstances to Senate Bill 25.
Chairman Martin.
Not that, Chairman, this question wasn't serious, but a serious question for just to be clear, isn't it true that with this, the language that is, even if the road is wide and up in our way, there's ingress and egress lanes many times around subdivisions where a bus looks like it's pulled off into an ingress lane into a subdivision, that cars are, it's necessary for cars to stop, even if the roads are 5 or 6 lanes wide,
right,
and they're pulled off the side, that people need to stop.
They absolutely need to stop.
They always did, and they would.
They always did before, exactly. I think the number of lanes is not necessarily what is in question here, is the nature of the division, that these are separate roadways.
Yes,
that is the only...
Yes, ma'am. And what I'm getting at is many people see that ingress lane as the bus is off the road, and therefore as if it were turned into the neighborhood, and that's not the fact.
Right.
Just that people live. And at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, if the chair would entertain, I would move to substitute House Bill 75 into Senate Bill 25 so that we make sure we have the language right.
You're out of order. Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Earhart, I just want to clarify, just talk with Senator Heath about
Representative Earhart.
Do
Thank you. Senator Earhart.
I said representative.
Oh.
I just clarified with Senator
Okay.
Heath. Well, believe me, I learned to say Representative Earhart a long time ago.
Sure.
This bill, I think really is one of the most important things that we're going to go ahead and address this year. But the bill is immediately effective upon the governor's signature, and you guys wrote that in.
It
right?
is, and absolutely. In Section 3 of this bill, it speaks to that as well, that this will be in effect immediately upon the signature of the governor.
And I think he's waiting to sign it.
He is waiting to sign it, and I'm told on good authority that he would like for this to be the first bill that he signs into law. So that is something we can all be proud of.
Thank you.
I see no other questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Rutledge. I saw you bring in your backpack. Is that like fresh off the plane?
Mr. Chairman, it is, and I got a bad story for you on that one. My buddy left his on the bench while waiting on Uber. He won $1,000 on the blackjack table. We loaded up at the Uber. He left it on the bench. We get to the airport, brand new laptop, $400 pair of Bose speakers, and so you just can't leave Vegas with cash, I guess. Is the moral of the story. But the trip was great until that moment. So, anyway, but
well, welcome back and tell us about HB 92.
Thank you. HB 92 is a measure brought to us by the Municipal Court Judges Council, and it'll simply allow. They're required to take 12 hours training each year, and this measure would allow them, when they take more training hours than 12, they can carry those hours over to the next year, but not to exceed 6 hours. And that's basically what this measure will do for them.
Any questions? Whip Kelly.
Just one question to my friend. Do you know if we allow Superior Court judges or state court judges to carry on their continuing education to carry over like this?
They do. I'm not sure what the amount is.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Chairman Tanner.
I was actually going to ask a similar question to the whip. Being a certified police officer and a licensed light commercial contractor, we have to get annual hours. We're not allowed to carry hours over. Purpose of the hours, I think, is so that you can stay current on current law and updates. I'm just curious if you knew of any other profession that we have in the law that we require hours that we allow to carry over.
Well, I think that's why they brought this measure to us, because other judges are allowed to do that. So, and it has to do with, again, caseload and being able to, schedule the time. When you sign up for the training, it's a lot of times more than the required amount, and so they're still required every year to go to the training. They just can't carry over, but 6 hours.
Right. Yeah, we have the same issue. Having ran a law enforcement agency, our officers had to take off, firefighters, but none of them are able to carry it over. So I was just curious if anybody else could. Thank you.
Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman, do you know the total number of hours that are annually required?
There's 12 annually.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Hughley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in response to the question about other professions, insurance agents can carry over a limited number of hours. So there are other professions that do that.
Okay, good.
Don't see any other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Chairman Welch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your blue sheet, I have HB 91. This is a request from the Department of Community Health. This legislation would allow for community health to enroll in what we're putting together, the state wrap-back program, which allows for us to maintain the fingerprints of individuals that are in a caregiving situation, overseeing those that are the most vulnerable of our population, elderly. In the particular of this bill would help with the enforcement and prevention of elder abuse. And I'll take any questions if you have them.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Chairman Harrell. You can sit at your seat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have before you House Bill 184. Those of you will recall in the last year or so we've had legislation dealing with the deployment of new technology, small cells or 5G in the public right-of-ways in our cities and counties and throughout the state. That legislation had all the parties working hard over the last year or two. It hadn't passed just yet. The Rural Development Council took up the issue in the interim, and all the various interested parties spent the last 7 months in multiple meetings, hours after hours, with their engineers, their attorneys, their advocates, and have put together a compromise bill, and that's what's before you now, House Bill 184. This bill is going to be supported by the industry, AT&T, Verizon. It also has the public support of Georgia Municipal Association and the Association of County Commissioners. So all these interested parties have come together on this piece of legislation. The substitute includes a minor revision requested by our power suppliers, EMCs and Georgia Power, and also a minor revision requested by our cable providers, Charter, Comcast, and others. So this is a well-balanced piece of legislation that will allow the deployment of this new technology. It'll do so in a way that preserves local government's ability to manage their right-of-ways, the right-of-ways where this infrastructure will be deployed. It encourages co-location first. So if they put a small antenna on a piece of existing infrastructure, the time frame for the review and the costs are lower than if it has to be a new structure. Helps preserve historic districts, allows even the local designation of a historic district as well as undergrounding. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer questions with regard to House Bill 184.
Chairman Martin.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, we've discussed this before. Can you point me, it's first time I've seen the bill, the section that talks about the pre-existing agreements that an authority might have? Can you just so I can...
your concern is primarily with a historic district or an area that has been deemed locally to have certain aesthetic requirements and so forth. I think if you first on the definitions, if you refer to the definition of historic district, first to be clear with what that is, and then I think if you flip to page 21, well, let's start with that definition. If you'll notice, one of the changes with regard to historic district, this is on page 4, starting on line 113. It includes not only something on the National Register. It also includes the Georgia Historic Preservation Act, but a modification, if you look at on line 120, paragraph C, any area designated as a historic district or property by law prior to the effective date. And the very next line, if you look at the definition of law, includes local laws. So there's a compromise and addition so that your local communities that have designated specific districts for architecture, design, historic, or what have you, and those ordinances and laws are in place prior to the passage of this bill, that is preserved. Then if you go to on page 21, starting about line 740 and continuing on to page 22, you will see where the local governments have the ability to review and deny or require that the aesthetics and the installation be consistent with the district they've designated. Thank you.
Chairman Powell.
My good friend, is it not true that any time that GMA and ACCG can get along with the utilities and perfect the bill, they've done scrubbed the hide right off of this thing? It's got to be a good bill.
Or get along with me. I mean,
good bill, good mediating.
Thank you.
Leader Burns.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a comment.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Harrell, thank you, and follow up on what was just mentioned. Thank you for working together with everyone concerned with a very difficult, complex subject and bringing forward good policy for our state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. And the credit goes to those with ACCG, GMA, Verizon, AT&T, and the other providers. They did an outstanding job, and they are deserving of our thanks for working together. They really did a super, super job.
I see no other questions.
Thank you.
Right now. Whip Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this is proper time, I'd ask to be recognized for the purposes of recommitting House Bill 113 back to the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee.
All right, you're making that in the form of a motion?
I am.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any objection to recommitting HB 113 back to Public Safety and Homeland Security? If there's none, it's recommitted. All right, let's set a calendar. Technically, under the rules, bill can't be heard on the floor until the committee report's been read. So we're running a little ahead of ourselves because the committee reports have not yet been read, but will be read this morning. So just so you're aware that the calendar will not be presented and the bills will not be called until after the committee reports have been read. But technically, the committee reports have to be read first. All right, we're setting Wednesday's calendar. HB 25. It's on. HB 92. It's on. SB 25. It's on. And that's the calendar for today. Calendar for tomorrow. HR 51. It's on. HB 184. It's on. We're adjourned.